Welcome in. This little guy here is the G800 dust processor, and today we're going to put this thing through its paces, compare it to the Jet and the Oneida where we can, and have a little fun. And just maybe you'll learn something new about dust collectors. So we're going to go through some of the claims that make these units unique and test them, kind of Mythbuster style. To start with, let's talk about how quiet it is. Everyone talks about how quiet the Gyro is, but is it really? On paper, the Gyro series is rated at 61 to 72 decibels at 9 feet, which for dust collectors is really quiet. The popular Jet cyclones you'll find at Woodcraft are rated at 76 decibels, the Oneida 3 horsepower V-Boost at 77 decibel, and the Oneida Dust Gorilla, which is a 5 horsepower unit, is rated at an ear-shattering 87 decibels. Now this may not sound like a lot of difference, but decibels are a logarithmic scale. So 87 decibels is 10 times louder than 77 decibels. Here's a comparison on a linear scale. So the Jet and the Oneida options are 3 times louder than the loudest the Gyro can get. And the 5 horsepower Dust Gorilla is 30 times louder. But what does this mean in the real world? Well, first, let's verify the Gyro claim. All right, so our background noise is about 40 decibels. I'm going to go ahead and turn on the dust collector and see right next to the unit how loud it gets. All right, so it peaked out at about 79 decibels right here next to the unit. But how does it really compare? So what do you get for all that noise? Well, let's come back to that. But while we're here, let's check out the build quality. Now I can tell you these units are really well built. It's mostly powder coated steel. The fit and finish is top notch. It's not what you would expect from a Chinese company, but it's what I'm coming to expect from Harvey. So these units are long and not tall. And most people talk about them fitting under the table. And while the G700 can, the 800 and the 1000, they're just too tall. So they're just kind of oddly sized. So unless you have a place in your shop that doesn't cost you more floor space, like under the stairs, or you have floor space to burn, this may end up taking up more floor space than you otherwise want to give up. So this is also a really big plus for the G700. It tucks under workbenches or assembly tables, and you can really save that floor space. Well, I've owned the 3 horsepower short cone, and the build quality, well, it's what you'd expect from China. It has a flimsy hopper, some weird assembly, and it generally feels low quality. With the Oneida, I think what you see is what you get. Quality parts, quality construction, it's made in the USA, and it would certainly kill you if it fell on you. But it's not terribly elegant looking. Still, I almost bought one. On the other hand, the Harvey doesn't look like a Chinese product at all. It's quality construction and it's an elegant design. It's really surprising. The technology that makes up the separator is pretty interesting. It's based on centrifugal force, and if you want to know more about it, Harvey has a lot of good info out there. So how does this compare to other cyclones? Well, in short, the longer the cone, the better the vortex for separation. In my experience though, the Harvey design is fantastic. All right, moving on. One of the biggest factors has to be the actual dust collection. And to keep it simple, we'll break it into 2 tests, suction and airflow. Static pressure is the resistance against airflow in the system. But what does that mean exactly? Perhaps think of it like riding a bike into the wind. And many things have impact on it. The size of the duct, the length of the duct, the bends in the duct, pretty much anything related to the duct. All of those will increase the static pressure, which will decrease the CFM. So the thing to know is, the more pipe and hose you have, the higher the static pressure and the lower the airflow. So we're going to use these to test pressure and airflow at various points in my shop to see real-world performance. So all gyros have 6-inch inlets, and 6 inches is the equivalent of 2 4-inch pipes, and an 8-inch pipe is the equivalent of 4 4-inch pipes or 2 6-inch pipes. All things being equal, an 8-inch pipe is going to allow more airflow than a 6-inch pipe. All right, let's run some tests. I've devised this port for my manometer, which I'll attach to existing pipes and will allow us to measure pressure. The reason I'm starting here is that measuring at the Harvey G800 simply overloads the tools. For the anemometer, I'll simply hold the anemometer in front of the open duct. This port is about 20 foot from the Harvey. Needless to say, the fact that it's overloading my tools at 20 feet with a 4-inch port is a good sign. Now this second test is a port that's at the far end of my shop. It's about as far as I can get from the dust collector with a lot of branches and turns. It goes up the ceiling, back down the ceiling, and so this is about as much static pressure as I can generate. It terminates with a 6-inch port, which I'm reducing to a 4-inch port for testing. So clearly the Harvey has no problem with suction and airflow. Now let's have a little fun and see what this thing will hold up. Here's a 5-inch piece of hard maple. Pretty impressive. Here's a much larger piece of black walnut. Yeah, it can almost hold it. Really neat. So this should give you a real-world idea of how the G800 might perform in a small garage shop. While the G700 has slightly lesser ratings, I think it'll perform very well. The G800 and the G1000 have a filter cleaning system where they take compressed air at about 60 psi and they inject it inside the filter to push the particles out. Those fall into the fine particle bin. But this unit is so damn good that I rarely have to use this feature. It's also not the only dust collector that has that feature, but it is uncommon. Most dust collectors have agitators that simply agitate the dust in the filter and it falls down. Now all the gyro units use TEFC or totally enclosed motors that are 3-phase, and that's great for longevity and keeping dust out and increasing efficiency. They do this with an internal VFD, which is why they have variable speed controls. The 700 and the 800 use single-phase 220 volt, and the G1000 uses 3-phase. Now, the G1000 using 3-phase speaks to its target audience. The Jet and the Oneida 3 horsepower use single-phase motors, and the 5 horsepower Dust Gorilla comes in either single-phase or 3-phase. So that might be a benefit for you if you're looking for a 5 horsepower system but only want to deal with single-phase power. But it's really nice that Harvey is a 3-phase motor with an internal VFD, and it's all just done right out of the box. It's also worth mentioning that not all motors are made equal, and US motors are higher quality with a good reputation. Chinese motors, well, your mileage may vary. It's hard to know exactly what you're going to get or what the longevity would be. Now with the Jet, you're going to get a Chinese motor. With the Harvey, you're going to get a Chinese motor. And with the Oneida, you're going to get an American motor. All right, let's talk about air quality. The Gyro and the Oneida both have great filters, with as good or better than HEPA ratings. The Harvey is in the sweet spot for woodworking with 0.3 to 0.5 micron particles. Those are the particles that tend to float around in the air for long periods of time and burrow deep down into your lungs. This Dialos meter measures air quality, and I'm going to place it at the exhaust of the G800. And then we're going to go to the edge sander and we're going to sand some wood down and see what escapes the gyro. After that, we'll do the same test at the edge sander with and without the dust collector turned on. So you can see 2 out of 3 results look really good. At the dust collector, air quality after edge sanding, great. At the edge sander, with the dust collector, air quality after edge sanding looks really good. Turn off the dust collector though, and you can see it goes from about 100 parts to 5,000 parts. And that's a dangerous level. So I guess the moral is, don't edge sand without a dust collector, and the Harvey dust collector works really well. All right, let's talk about pricing. Now there's a big price jump between the G700 and the G800. The Oneidas are priced reasonably for the specs, with the noted trade-offs and benefits. If you've ever bought a Harvey product, you know the pricing is all over the place. I'm not sure what Harvey's marketing team's strategy is, but I find it really annoying. I think it actually has the opposite effect of sales. People may end up waiting for a better deal. So you never really know if you're getting a deal, but if you can handle that, there is value there. Overall, here's my recommendation. If you're attracted by how quiet the gyro units are, and the form factor works in your shop, and the airflow works for your tools, these units are fantastic. Now, if your collector can be outside your shop, or you don't care about noise, or you don't have neighbors, or you're always wearing hearing protection, or you're just half deaf, well, the 5 horsepower Oneida or Clearview might be the best deal. All right, to sum it all up, if you're doing high volume woodworking or you have multiple people using multiple tools, you probably want an Oneida. But if you're a hobby shop like me, with low volumes, the Gyro is a pleasant and elegant solution. And the G700 is excellent value without taking up a lot of shop space. Oh, I was just getting to you. I was. Doesn't really knock. So we're going to go through some of the things that set the Gyro units apart from other dust collectors. And then I'm going to fix my light, which just went out. Great. Cancel, stop.